As panic, death, and fear spread throughout the imperial capital of the great Rathalos Empire, brave warriors desperately fought to protect their families and guide them away from the Crimson Light domain. After the black bats suddenly ignored them and flew away to a concentrated location, their hearts ignited with hope and joy. The bats are leaving? Quick! Let us depart this place immediately, a bald warrior urged his wife and children to leave the house and follow him. Shortly after they came out, the bald warrior picked up one of his sons to unburden his wife before he grabbed his wife's hand and pulled her along as they fled the area. Why are the bats all going over there, Daddy? The bald warrior's son asked while getting carried. However, the bald warrior didn't have an accurate answer to provide. I don't know, son. However, it's probably not something good. We better leave as far as we can from the danger, the bald warrior stated with a grave look. Meanwhile, screams and shouts from other families in the residential area could be heard in the background. The bats are gone. Come on. We have to hurry and leave. They might come back anytime. That's right. This place isn't safe. It's too close to that wall of red light. But where can we go? Rumble. Just as the people were lost and confused, the tremors caused by numerous heavy footsteps were shortly heard. Moments later, a large group of Imperial soldiers arrived in the residential district. The Imperial army is here. Everyone should head south to the Martial Hall for shelter and safety. The Martial Hall's doors are open to all women, children, and elderly. Please follow the instructions of the Imperial soldiers along the way and move in a quick but orderly fashion. Do not push or shove the people beside or in front of you. Anyone failing to follow orders will be punished. Many people wish to jump the queue and get ahead of everyone else. After all, the lives of other people were never as important as their own. However, the Imperial soldiers' intimidating auras forced the ordinary people to comply. Meanwhile, the Martial Hall welcomed countless streams of people who had fled their homes near the Crimson Light domain. The Martial Hall was one of the few places with magical enchantments and formations to protect it from outside threats. Moreover, it had a large gathering of warriors. Thus, it was one of the safest places to be. Weak creatures of darkness like the vampiric demon bats could not break its protective barrier. Alas, although the Martial Hall occupied vast lands, it was quickly filled when millions of people flocked towards it. People pushed and squeezed through even after the Martial Hall hit its capacity limit. Order quickly declined, and chaos spread like wildfire within moments. Everyone, please stop. The Martial Hall is full. Please head to the next emergency shelter to find refuge from the disaster, a melodious, charming voice said amidst the chaos, informing everyone of the Martial Hall's situation. However, it was quickly disregarded and drowned in the sea of desperation and outrage. What do you mean the Martial Hall is full? The Martial Hall is so big. How can there be no more room? That's right. There will be a lot more room if we all squeeze in together. Don't listen to this person's nonsense. Others can enter, but we can't. I don't buy it. Keep pushing, everyone. We will surely get in. Even with Imperial soldiers around, the Imperial capital was littered with death and danger. After all, who knew how long they would have to travel to reach the next one? Furthermore, no one knew what danger awaited them on the road either. Please listen to me, everyone. There really is no more room. I don't believe you. Why are you trying to stop us? Do you want to watch us die outside? That's right. What right do you have to stop us from trying to get to safety? People in the rear with no hopes of getting inside the Martial Hall started accusing the beautiful young lady. Ridiculous. You are in the presence of the third Imperial Princess, Princess Dana. Show some respect, peasant. Such insolence can get you beheaded. Meanwhile, the male martial students at the Martial Hall were even more furiously. What kind of rubbish thing are you? How dare you disregard our goddess like so? Do you think the Martial Hall's doors are open to just anyone? Humph. You can forget about entering. You are banned from ever setting foot into the sacred grounds of the Martial Hall. Either you all fuck off right this instance, or eat my fist and get sent off by me. Ha, second martial brother, you are too kind. As the belligerent, thug-like group of martial students furiously spoke with threats of violence, forget it. Let us leave, an intimidated woman said to her husband with a helpless sigh before quietly adding, it's best if we don't get involved with the third princess. Among the 7 imperial princesses, Princess Dana possessed the most infamy despite her angelic-like, kind, and gentle half. Solaran beauty. Princess Dana had an appearance that could melt frozen hearts and a voice that could soothe one's soul. She was a witch, but she trained in the martial way and was even quite accomplished in it. That was why the martial students respected her. Alright, the woman's husband consented after recalling the rumors about Princess Dana. Shortly after the crowd recognized Princess Dana's status, the disorder and chaos quickly died. No one had the courage to continue causing trouble in her presence, especially not after the imperial soldiers and martial students made their stances clear to them. Anyone with their brain screwed on properly wouldn't do so. After all, disrespecting Princess Dana even after her status was made clear was equivalent to challenging imperial authority. The normal punishment for challenging imperial authority was death by beheading. In the most severe cases, it was the execution of one's entire family and relatives. This was to reinforce imperial authority and quell rebellious hearts. Nevertheless, Princess Dana was kind and reasonable as she appeared to those who knew her. Her infamy only came from her choice to pursue the martial way against all opposing views on the matter. After all, the martial way was the warrior's path, the path of men. Women who awakened their witch powers should join the sacred Tirtha and learn the art of healing and treating diseases. At the very least, that was the norm for women until the imperial capital turned into a shithole due to the vampire outbreak. Nevertheless, contrary to expectations, Princess Dana did not become unsightly from training the martial way. She did not become a muscular giant like most warriors. In fact, she retained a slender body with toned muscles and silky smooth skin. One could even argue that pursuing the martial way had enhanced her beauty instead. Despite that, men also considered Princess Dana undesirable. As such, Princess Dana was still unwed at 100 years of age. After all, she was a peak-stage senior witch with a body comparable to mid-rank for body refiners. Furthermore, the combination of magic and brute strength made her power comparable to peak rank for body refiners. If not for the limitation of magic development in the Great Rathalos Empire, she could have been even more powerful. No warrior wanted to have a wife more powerful than them, as doing so would make them the joke of the city. People would belittle their strength and question their masculinity at home. Such disgrace and humiliation wasn't something a proud warrior could endure, nor were they willing to experience. On the other hand, the few men who actually desired Princess Dana for her strength and beauty lacked the qualifications to enter her eyes or win her hand in marriage. They were mostly weak men without prospects. Since everyone has become cooperative, please follow the instructions of the soldiers. They will point you to the next closest emergency shelter and escort you there, Princess Dana directed with a sweet smile. Many unmarried men were immediately charmed by her. However, they quickly shook their heads as they recalled who she was. When Princess Dana smiled, she was like a saintly angel. But when she was angry, she was also different from an Azura from hell. This illusion was especially vivid due to her blonde and scarlet hair, which gave her a wild and rebellious impression. Strong men didn't want her, and weak men couldn't handle her. As the excess crowd slowly dispersed from the martial hall's entrance, a small group of wyvern riders arrived to see Princess Dana. Your Highness, please come with us. His Imperial Majesty has instructed us to escort you to Dragon Palace for safety, the leading wyvern rider respectfully informed. Why do I need to be escorted to safety? Princess Dana frowned, evidently unhappy with the arrangement. Am I someone who needs to hide away in the comfort of safety? I can stay and fight. Your Highness, please don't make things difficult for me, the wyvern rider pleaded, helplessly adding, I am only following the will of your father, the Emperor. Everyone is scared and afraid without knowing what is happening, Princess calmly mentioned before her gaze turned sharp with gloom and graveness. Despite that, I've been doing my best to calm everyone and control the situation here. And yet, before I get to learn anything further about the situation, my father wants to send me away? How is that acceptable? Princess Dana voiced her objection. She was an imperial princess of the Great Rathalos Empire, the Holy Land of Warriors. She could have lived a luxurious and simple life like her sisters. However, she had decided to pick up the sword and pursue the martial way, all to acquire strength to become a leading figure who could safeguard her country. Now that the empire was experiencing a crisis unlike before, the strength she desperately pursued could finally show its worth in such a time of need. To flee to safety at such a crucial time was equivalent to spitting on her sense of responsibility and everything she had worked for. The wyvern rider didn't know how to respond as he experienced a dilemma. Even if he really tried to carry out the Emperor's will by force, he might not necessarily succeed since Princess Dana could rival him. He might even lose if he wasn't careful. I understand your position and difficulty, but you must also understand mine, Princess Dana calmly stated before adding, you should know that it is also meaningless to try convincing me to leave with you. I will not shy away from danger and my responsibilities. However, you don't have to worry about failing my imperial father's orders. He will not fault you since I am the one defying his will. In any case, I have always been regarded as the rebellious child in the family. Since when have I not defied people's expectations? If you know anything about the real situation, please tell me and enlighten us all. There's no point keeping me in the dark. I won't be able to help if I don't know anything, Princess Dana sincerely requested shortly after. Her words quickly won the wyvern riders over, as they admired and respected her desire to fight for her country. Even if she was a woman, she had the bearing of a true leader. Understood, Your Highness. The wyvern riders gave Princess Dana their most solemn salute as a sign of their respect and recognition. Shortly after, the leading wyvern rider filled her in on the situation. The current situation is like this, based on our current understanding, we know that the area covered by the Crimson Light has become part of Gehenna. Furthermore, it is connected to Evernight Domain, the territory of the great devil Abaddon. So far, most of us have only encountered the lowest level creatures from the Evernight Domain. However, the situation is very dire. Our empire's experts are all locked in battle with powerful vampires, and they are losing. Moreover, we've received word that great devil Abaddon himself intends to descend on our world with his army of vampires. It's just a matter of time before the vampires overrun the city and take control of it. Although it all sounds unreal, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this is most likely the worst possible event to have ever happened in the history of humankind, Your Highness. Princess Dana's expression became unbelievably grim after she learned about the situation. She didn't think it was a reversible situation. However, her eyes soon flashed with sharp killing intent. Regardless of the final result, she was prepared to slaughter as many vampires as possible. Previous chapter. Back in the Holy Night Empire, Inauz was prepared to leave after selecting her candidates for recruitment when Astoria suddenly received news of the Great Rathalos Empire's situation from Kizi. After Astoria relayed the news, Inauz decisively dropped her original plans and decided to join the reinforcement army with Astoria. In the Black Rose Kingdom, Henrietta soon finished mobilizing half of Blackthorn City's military force. She awaited word from the Red Dragon clan to assist their deployment while Victoria recalled her search teams, intending to bring them into the upcoming battle. Nevertheless, whether it was the Holy Knight Empire or the Black Rose Kingdom, their large-scale mobilization of troops quickly alerted the spies hidden within their countries. Before long, even the neighboring countries were alarmed by their movements, prompting them to mobilize their own forces to guard against the potential invasion. The Scarlet Flame Kingdom deployed 500,000 battle witches to the eastern borders. On the other hand, the Divine League concentrated the forces of its 12 city-states in its northernmost territory, the Divine Sword City. Despite the short notice, it gathered a 2 million strong army to defend its borders. However, their fears were unfounded. The Divine League soon received words from their spies that the Holy Knight Empire's army had suddenly disappeared into thin air. Similar news from the spies in the Black Rose Kingdom was relayed to the Scarlet Flame Kingdom. This buffer period of confusion gave the Divine League and the Scarlet Flame Kingdom a chance to consider their neighbors' real intentions. If their neighboring countries were truly planning to launch sudden invasions on them, they would not have gathered their armies in their capital cities. However, if those armies weren't mobilized for war against them, then what were they mobilized for? More importantly, where did they go? These questions prompted the Scarlet Flame Kingdom and the Divine League to investigate the matter seriously. The unknown gave birth to fear and unease. Thus, they had to know the reason. Knowing nothing made them feel vulnerable. During the vampire outbreak in the Great Rathalos Empire, the Black Rose Kingdom and the Holy Knight Empire were the first countries to learn about it despite being the most isolated from the Great Rathalos Empire. However, it didn't take long before other countries started learning what was happening inside the Great Rathalos Empire. Naturally, the first country to learn the truth besides the Black Rose Kingdom and the Holy Knight Empire was the Nine Kingdoms Alliance, situated south of the Great Rathalos Empire. As its name suggested, the Nine Kingdoms Alliance was comprised of 9 kingdoms that had allied with each other. On the surface, they appeared to be an independent group with no other affiliations. But in truth, they were closer to the vassal kingdoms of the Great Rathalos Empire. After all, they lost their talents to the Great Rathalos Empire all year round. Regardless of status, whether commoners or nobles, their talents rarely returned to their home kingdoms after heading there to train. Nevertheless, after the Nine Kingdoms Alliance learned about the Great Rathalos Empire's situation, they did not choose to send support. Instead, they cut off all routes to the Great Rathalos Empire and built blockades to prevent the potential threat from spreading to their lands. In their opinion, the Great Rathalos Empire was a lost cause. They were doomed to fall to ruin. No existing power could possibly stop the Great Devil Abaddon and his army of vampires from overturning the Great Rathalos Empire. Within the following 12 hours, the Nine Kingdoms Alliance quickly spread the news to the rest of Pangaea like wildfire, hoping to receive aid in fortifying their border defenses. After all, once the Great Rathalos Empire fell, they were likely next in line. As Emperor Vaan was locked in battle with Casimir, he did not know that the whole continent was already paying close attention to his country's situation. However, he didn't have the spare energy to consider. After fighting such a high-intensity battle with Casimir for so long, he was exhausted in body and spirit. His sense of responsibility and willpower were the only things that kept him moving. He couldn't fall, he wasn't allowed to fall. His empire needed him. I think I've played around with you long enough, human emperor. Casimir suddenly grinned and said, I don't know what took the blood ancestor so long, but it seems he is finally about to descend since the rest of our people are coming. Actually, Casimir wasn't sure if Great Devil Abaddon was coming. However, he could sense many vampires emerging from the Crimson Light domain. Kakik, our main vampire army is here, Casimir rejoiced. In fact, Casimir wasted so much time on Emperor Vaan because he didn't dare go anywhere else. As such, Casimir could only use Emperor Vaan to bide his time until reinforcements arrived. Pung! Casimir stopped pulling his punches and suddenly used more force. Given Emperor Varan's weakened state, the strong smack almost robbed his life. However, he persistently clung to life. Casimir glanced at Emperor Vaan thoughtfully before saying, alas, we did fight for so long, after all. Maybe I have grown attached, but it does seem like a pity to kill you now. I guess I'll let you live a bit longer to witness the fate of your empire, human emperor, Casimir said magnanimously with a cruel smile. Just as Casimir turned to leave, he felt his ankle grabbed by Emperor Varan's dirty and bloody hands. Let go of your filthy hands, human. I said, let go. Let go. Do you hear me? Casimir said with disgust, stomping down on Emperor Varan's hands with his spare leg. However, no matter how many times he stepped on Emperor Vaan, the latter refused to let go, even when his hands turned into mangled flesh. Our fight isn't over. Emperor Vaan spat with determination. Casimir was suddenly shocked by Emperor Varan's tenacity and strength. How could you still have this much strength? Where is this strength coming from? Casimir exclaimed with disbelief, finding it unreal to see a half-dead human burst with greater strength than before. At the same time, he could hear Emperor Varan's heartbeat becoming louder and more powerful. Ba-dump. Ba-dump. As Emperor Varan's heartbeat grew louder, the blood coursing through his body became increasingly potent and violent. His skin turned red and hot as his physical strength soared with each beating moment. At the same time, the texture of his skin changed as it became more rough and uneven, almost like scales were trying to protrude out of it. The skin color of these affected areas also turned brownish red. Suddenly, a burst of strength flooded Emperor Varan's body, prompting him to grab Casimir's ankle with more force. Roar! In the next instant, Emperor Vaan suddenly shot up to his feet. He hurled Casimir away like tossing out the trash before letting out a mighty, inhuman roar. Boom! Casimir crash-landed into an unstable building with incredible force before the entire structure crumbled to the ground, burying him underneath it. Moments later, Casimir burst out from the broken ruins and debris and locked onto Emperor Varen's altered figure with a solemn yet ugly expression as he studied the human's transformation. The crash didn't particularly injure him, but it did cause him greater psychological damage. To think he would be thrown away like garbage by a mere human. So that's how it is. Casimir suddenly understood Emperor Varen's unexpected increase in strength. No wonder you are a little stronger than the other humans I have seen. You've actually been transplanted with a wyvern bloodline. However, Emperor Vaan didn't just transplant a wyvern bloodline into his body, he even awakened it. The chance of that happening was even lower than the red wyverns awakening their bloodline. Even the red wyvern ancestor had yet to awaken his ancestral bloodline of the dragons. And yet, Emperor Vaan managed to do it. Kakik, this is so ridiculous. Casimir suddenly started laughing after recognizing his folly. I was only playing around with you, but the act of forcing you to overcome your body's limits repeatedly ended up benefiting you. Your luck is truly outrageous, human emperor. Casimir spat with envy. However, upon further thought, Casimir figured it might not necessarily be a bad thing that Emperor Vaan awakened his wyvern bloodline. After all, his blood had become more potent and desirable. Why don't you swear your loyalty to me and become my blood servant, human emperor? I will permit you to live under my wing, Casimir offered, suddenly becoming amicable and friendly despite their earlier conflict. Emperor Vaan responded to Casimir's offer with a fist to the face. Although Casimir saw Emperor Varen's incoming fist, his blood wall failed to block the attack. In the end, his blood wall shattered like glass, and the fist cleanly landed on his face. Bam! Casimir was sent flying as his face caved in under the brute force. Before Casimir could recover mid-flight, Emperor Vaan chased him like a raging mad bull and caught up, then smashed him into the ground with a powerful hammer kick. The ground turned into a small crater under the impact. However, that wasn't the end of Emperor Varen's attacks as he pounced on Casimir's body at the crater center. Emperor Vaan didn't intend to stop his relentless assault until Casimir's head burst beyond recovery. It was like Emperor Vaan was on stimulants, he did not dare to rest or stop until he slaughtered his foe. After all, he may have awakened the wyvern bloodline. Although Casimir wanted to fight back, he wasn't given a single chance to break free from the stun lock created by Emperor Varen's increasingly swift, concussive blows. Fear and regret slowly seeped into his heart as Casimir thought he might die. With his vocal cords repeatedly destroyed by Emperor Varen's brutal fists, he couldn't even plead for his life. Emperor Vaan noticed Casimir's pleading gaze, but his onslaught remained ruthless and relentless. Sorry, but you have to die. You fight the domination of your race while I fight for the survival of mine. We are not the same. Underestimating me is a mistake you will have to take to the grave with you. The hope in Casimir's eyes immediately dulled. Sometime later, Casimir stopped recovering from his wounds after Emperor Vaan bashed his head in for the last time. He was killed in the most violent way possible. Nevertheless, after confirming Casimir's death, Emperor Vaan immediately roared victoriously at the heavens. Finally dead. Emperor Vaan thought before collapsing to the ground after using the last ounce of energy in his roar. Your Majesty. Imperial soldiers quickly rushed forward to secure his body and tend his wounds to the best of their abilities. Meanwhile, Vaan continued to explore the effectiveness of his boundless sea and sky aura. Unfortunately, it was not as powerful as it used to be in the memories of his earliest past lives. The endless cycles of reincarnations had chipped away at its power and reduced it to a meager fraction of its peak. Whether the boundless sea and sky aura could be recovered to its peak was something Vaan had yet to figure out. However, he could confirm that he shared an intimate relationship with all flying and sea-based life forms. They would not be hostile to him without a proper reason, regardless of their sentience level. Furthermore, although he couldn't control them, it was still possible to tame them through effort. In fact, anyone could tame wild creatures and beasts if they used the right method and put in the effort. However, the difficulty and time were just greatly reduced for him. Any sky or sea regions considered dangerous in the past will just be a stroll in the backyard for me now, Vaan mused. Furthermore, the current boundless sea and sky aura was still a frightening summoning ability. With the right conditions, it could start beast tides. Your proficiency with the fourth dimensional sense increased. Your proficiency with the fourth dimensional sense increased. Your proficiency with the fourth dimensional sense increased. Your understanding of the vampiric demon bat's language increased. Your understanding of the red wyvern clan's language increased. Your understanding of black crows increased. Your understanding of thunder eagles increased. Your understanding of storm falcons increased. While staying in the eye of the black tornado of flying creatures, Vaan continued receiving countless system notifications. The flying creatures attempted to communicate with him. They cawed, shrieked, screeched, and squawked for his attention, but the language barrier made it impossible for them to understand each other. Without spiritual wisdom like the red wyvern ancestor, their native beast language would remain unsophisticated and structured. They relied on more than just the basic power of speech to communicate, such as body gestures. Nevertheless, their intentions became increasingly clear to Vaan as he was ever learning. It was only a matter of time before he completely understood them. Although the flying creatures didn't understand why they were attracted to his aura, they found it soothing to be around him, like how spirits enjoyed staying in environments that aligned with their elemental nature. No. Perhaps the soothing warmth was closer to that of a child returning to their mother's embrace. The Lord of Boundless Seas and Skies earned his divine title after he created countless seas and skies across chaos and nurtured many more sky and sea-based life forms over many chaos cycles. Even though the Lord of Boundless Seas and Skies wasn't the origin of all sky and sea-based life, he was not different from one due to his accumulated karma. As such, his aura extended to even sky and sea-based life forms he didn't create and nurture. In another location, the Red Wyvern ancestor swooped down from the sky and landed next to the recovering emperor after finishing a difficult battle. Vaan boy, what on earth is that black storm? Do you have an idea? Several members of the younger generation in my clan have ignored my commands, and all joined that unknown formation, the Red Wyvern ancestor mentioned. You ask me, but who do I ask? Emperor Vaan helplessly replied while his wounds were getting dressed and wrapped in bandages. He glanced at the distant black tornado and added, I don't know what's happening, but for now, it doesn't seem to be a bad thing. The large swarm of bats was the main source of problems behind civilian casualties. As such, whatever attracted the bats had also saved a lot of lives. I see. Even you don't know. The Red Wyvern ancestor fell silent for a moment before saying, even I am tempted to fly over there. It feels like I am being summoned, and I don't have any guard or reservation towards this feeling either. It's rather concerning, the Red Wyvern ancestor added with a frown. Emperor Vaan was surprised to hear the Red Wyvern ancestor wanted to join the flying formation. What kind of power could produce such an effect that even demigods weren't immune to it? Perhaps the Red Dragon might know something, Emperor Vaan thought. The Red Wyvern ancestor couldn't help but agree. If anyone knew something, it would be the Red Dragon clan. Nevertheless, the flying formation wasn't their most pressing concern. What are your plans, Vaan boy? The Red Wyvern ancestor inquired. Emperor Vaan pondered for a moment before saying, for the time being, evacuating all the citizens from the affected area and setting up a line of defense are our main objectives. Based on my understanding, we've only been hit with Great Devil Abaddon scouting parties. I'd hate to imagine what would happen once he descends on our world with his main force, Emperor Vaan said with a sigh. Most likely, the imperial capital will fall under their control, the Red Wyvern ancestor casually said. Right, Emperor Vaan solemnly acknowledged before saying, however, we will still resist them with all we have, even if it kills us. We can't give Great Devil Abaddon a chance to establish his foothold in our world. His descent will plague this world in an endless dark cloud of death and fear, Emperor Vaan stated with a heavy expression. In that case, I suggest you reach out to the Red Dragon clan and plead for help with your full sincerity, the Red Wyvern ancestor suggested. I have already pledged my allegiance to young Lord Kavat, so I am not in a position to ask for anything that may not benefit young Lord Kavat and his clan. However, if they can't send any more help, you can only request help from the other countries on this continent, though I doubt they can do much, the Red Wyvern ancestor honestly thought. I have also thought of that, Wyvern ancestor. However, the Red Dragons are all locked in fierce battles right now. It's difficult to find a chance to talk to them, Emperor Vaan sighed. In fact, it was only thanks to the Red Dragons' help that they could resist the vampires until now. Asking them for more help was rather shameless. Even so, Emperor Vaan had no other choice. As for the other countries, forget it, I'll be plenty happy if they don't try to stab us in the back during these trying times. Interesting. Kavat's sudden voice surprised the Red Wyvern ancestor and Emperor Vaan as his majestic body descended the area. Young Lord Kavat, the Red Wyvern ancestor humbly greeted. Kavat acknowledged him before turning to Emperor Vaan. With a domineering flair, he asked, the Red Dragon clan can help, but what is the great Rathalos Empire willing to offer for our full help? Oh. Emperor Vaan was startled momentarily before seriously replying, rather than what we can offer, what does the Red Dragon clan want from us, Venerable Dragon? Our god seeks to unite the divided human countries under his rule to combat Gehenna's threat. What do you think our god wants from you? Kavat calmly replied back. Emperor Vaan immediately fell silent. He was about to make the most important decision in his life and possibly betray the trust of his ancestors. However, the great Rathalos Empire's current predicament didn't give them the luxury to negotiate. Stubbornness in keeping their pride and independence would only result in countless more deaths. Furthermore, they had no right to negotiate, especially not in front of Kavat, who had already gained the allegiance of their guardian beast. Generally speaking, a third to half of the Great Rathalos Empire was already under the Red Dragon clan's control. I am willing to represent the entire Great Rathalos Empire and swear our allegiance to your god if your Red Dragon clan is willing to help us tide over this disaster, Venerable Dragon. When Kavat heard this question, he immediately laughed and said, our god is already helping you. Who do you think is currently stopping the bats from feasting on your people? This. Emperor Vaan and the Red Wyvern ancestor glanced at the black tornado in the distance before staring at each other with dismay. That was the power of Kavat's god? Just how strong was that being? They both wondered. In their mind, the Red Dragon clan's god became an even more unfathomable being. They started to see some hope in what they thought was a hopeless situation. Is there a chance I can speak with your god, Venerable Dragon? Feel free to speak your mind, Emperor. Our god is entirely aware of our conversation, Kavat calmly stated before adding, our god sees and hears all, Kavat proudly boasted. Although Emperor Vaan really wanted to confirm how much of that was true, he didn't want to appear disrespectful or doubtful. After all, his empire was at the mercy of the Red Dragon clan. Whether his empire could continue to exist or be left to rot in ruins could all be decided with a single word for the dragon god. Just as Emperor Vaan opened his mouth, an imperial messenger hastily scrambled over in horror. Your Majesty, it's terrible. Vampires are emerging from the Crimson Light domain in large numbers. There are far too many of them. I don't think our defensive lines will hold for long, the imperial messenger reported. What? Emperor Vaan immediately turned grave as he barked, what are the exact numbers and their strength? The imperial messenger opened his mouth, but he couldn't reply. He was sent to alert the emperor the moment the vampire army emerged. How could he know their exact numbers and strength? However, not long after, another imperial messenger rushed over to report the latest news. Why, Your Majesty, a 10,000-strong army of vampires has emerged from the Crimson Light domain and launched an attack on our defensive line. Based on the preliminary clash, they are not as strong as the first vampire group. However, they are tearing through our soldiers with great momentum. Commander Kandu is desperately requesting expert aid to resist them. Ding. You have read the target's information with your fourth-dimensional sense. Your proficiency in perceiving hidden from the void has slightly increased. The Gehenna information has been translated and compiled. Target's information. Name, Visra. Race, vampire. Class, halfling. Age, 80 Gehenna years. Position, lowest-ranking soldier in the vampire army. Existence level, mid-level rank 3 vampiric being, suppressed to peak level rank 2 vampiric being. Abilities, blood control. Target's information. Name, Devere. Race, vampire. Class, pure blood. Age, over 500 Gehenna years. Position, commander rank soldier in the vampire army. Existence level, high level rank 5 vampiric being. Target's information. Name, Vinra. Race, vampire. Class, true. Age, over 200 Gehenna years. Position, captain rank soldier in the vampire army. Existence level, high level rank 4 vampiric being, suppressed to low level rank 4 vampiric being. Abilities, blood control, shadow manipulation. Shortly after the vampire army emerged from the Crimson Light domain, Vaan immediately studied their numbers and strength. Countless pieces of information poured into his mind, allowing him to grasp their structure. Ding! You have grasped a complete understanding of the vampire hierarchy. The information has been compiled. Vampire hierarchy. Rank 0, pseudo-vampire. Rank 1, newborn vampire/halfling. Rank 2, true vampire. Rank 3, pure blood vampire. Rank 4, noble vampire. Rank 5, royal vampire. Rank 6, vampire lord. Pseudo-vampire, a class of vampiric beings given to beings rejected and ruined by vampiric blood. They are bloodthirsty creatures whose spiritual wisdom has been destroyed and are short-lived. They can be manipulated by higher-ranking vampires in the hierarchy and can only be regarded as slaves. Newborn vampire/halfling, a class of vampiric beings given to vampires born through vampirization by ingesting vampiric blood. They are low-ranking vampires who can only be part of the servant class. True vampire, a class of vampiric beings given to vampires born from any two kinds of vampiric beings. Although better than servants, they can only be part of the commoner class. Pure blood vampire, a class of vampiric beings given to vampires without any non-vampiric bloodline. They are part of the middle class in the vampiric hierarchy. Noble vampire, a class of vampiric beings given to vampires born between a royal vampire parent and a pure blood vampire parent. They are mainly part of the middle class, but a few privileged births can be included in the upper class. Royal vampire, a class of vampiric beings given to direct descendants of vampire lords. They are the true upper-class beings in their vampirical society. They enjoy great power and authority. Vampire lord, a class of vampiric beings given to vampires who had evolved from their ancestral origins, the vampiric demon bats. They are regarded as the true progenitor of blood and possess unfathomable powers. The great devil Abaddon is history's oldest and most powerful vampire lord. As such, he is also called the blood ancestor. After Vaan compiled the vampires' information, it became clear that the vampires had only shown a small fraction of their full strength so far. Great Devil Abaddon's night parade wasn't the next biggest threat after him. There were also vampire lords that had yet to make an appearance. Furthermore, they did not know how many vampire lords existed or the height of their power either. Reasons led Vaan to believe they were at least divine-rank vampiric beings. However, it was also strange for Gehenna to have so many divine beings, at least, according to Pangea's current understanding. After all, they had no idea of any divine beings besides the 7 great devils. That said, given the peak power of the 7 great devils, it also made sense that Gehenna wasn't limited to 7 divine rank beings. Pangea learned a lot about Gehenna over 300 years. But from another perspective, this level of understanding was also as good as nothing. After all, this knowledge was all hearsay, information obtained from the words of others, regardless of the means. Without personally exploring Gehenna and seeing with one's eyes, hearing with one's ears, and feeling with one's hands, how could the information be validated? Humans were indeed intelligent, but the foundation of several hundred years couldn't be compared to million-year-old monsters. The schemes of the great devils ran deep. Perhaps everything the world learned about Gehenna was only what the 7 great devils wanted the world to know. Until the truth was truly revealed, all speculations were only just that, mere speculation. Nevertheless, as Vaan observed the vampire army, he noticed several major points of interest. This army of vampires has zero discipline, they are too disorderly. Moreover, they show signs of panic and desperation as they emerge from Gehenna. This isn't the behavior of people going to war. Instead, they are fleeing. But from what? As Vaan pondered the matter, he moved closer to the vampire army to assist the human resistance until their reinforcements arrived. At the same time, the black tornado of flying creatures followed him, tearing apart everything in its path. The brick roads and stone buildings were all dismantled by sheer wind pressure. The black tornado of flying creatures mainly comprised low-rank vampiric demon bats, but their great numbers and coordination within the formation allowed them to generate power far beyond their limits. Even Transcendence would have to be careful against such a powerful flying formation. Damn it. We can't last much longer. Why aren't our reinforcements here yet? An Imperial soldier in the vanguard roared in desperation as he blocked the vampire's advancement with a giant black shield. The last messenger only departed mere moments ago. How could reinforcements arrive so quickly? Another shield-bearer cried anxiously before saying, "It's over. I can't hold on any longer." Just as the Imperial soldiers in the vanguard started drowning in despair, they noticed the vampires' pushing force weakening rapidly. As they hid behind their giant shields, they couldn't understand the reason. However, those in the rear saw the situation clear. "The bats are helping us," an Imperial soldier exclaimed with shock and disbelief, unable to comprehend why the bats turned on the vampires. Meanwhile, Vaan continued to walk through the rear of the vampire army. Countless halflings, true vampires, and even pure-blood vampires were sucked into the great flying formation of black bats, torn apart and hurled away. Vaan was akin to a walking disaster as destruction followed him. "Arg, what are these stupid bats doing? Someone tell them to stop." "No, don't." "Ah," a pure-blood vampire cried in fear as the great flying formation devoured him.